My name is Paul Manos. I'm a botanist in the Department of Biology here at Duke University. And we're in Duke Gardens right now, right near where the Hexastylus display is. And there's a wonderful white oak behind me that's probably about 175 years old or so. And it's producing very distinctly different leaf sizes. This would be the shade leaf here. This would be the sun leaf from up in the canopy. And this is Quercus alba, sort of the iconic species of eastern North America. And here in Duke Gardens, we've got a great collection of white oaks and red oaks and a few other representatives of some of the other sections within the genus. And on this trail we're about to walk up, we're going to see some of the more less common species of the southeast, such as Oglethorpe oak and a few others that are really worth talking about. Okay, so we're up the trail a little bit looking at this fine specimen of Quercus oglethorpensis. It turns out that I collected the seeds that gave rise to this plant back in the mid-90s. And this is the newest oak to eastern North America. It was recognized by a botanist from the University of Georgia in 1948. So oaks were still being recognized. This wasn't like part of another species. This was a brand new species to science, Quercus oglethorpensis. It occurs in bottomlands, sort of near the border, Piedmont border of North Carolina and South Carolina. Wilbur Duncan thought that this oak might be related to post oak, Quercus stellata, and he thought about the hairs on the leaves, and he thought about the way that the leaf turns color, so that its fall foliage reminded him of post oak, a couple of species of post oak, the lesser sand post oak and the post oak. And it turns out he was right. So all of our DNA work since has shown that this species and all the post oaks form a really tight group that is predominantly a southeastern species complex. They're really interesting, and their bark is so classically flaky, like a typical white oak. Hi, so we're here with Georgia oak, Quercus georgiana, and it's just up the trail from Oglethorpe oak. And this is a really nice part of the Blomquist garden where they showcase some of the lesser known and more uncommon oaks of the southeast. And so this is a really interesting example of a red oak species which occurs on granite outcrops in places such as Stone Mountain, which is northeast of Atlanta, and then it jumps to another set of populations in Alabama on rocks as well. So Georgia oak, Oglethorpe oak, and Bluff oak represent three of maybe another 10 species that are really narrowly distributed in the southeastern U.S. All right, I'm standing next to Quercus coccinea. It's a nice individual here, sort of in the back 40 of the Blomquist garden. We've got some of the native oaks coming on to the area where we've got the oaks we've brought in from other places. So there's a great showcase of oak diversity here of many of the native Piedmont species. This is a red oak that is very well known to field botanists because of its brilliant color in the fall. We were just talking about how its buds have these little white hairs on them, and their acorns and cups are really distinctive too. We just don't have those from this tree this year. But overall, the bark is really interesting. It's reminiscent of northern red oak, but the smooth parts of the bark are discontinuous, and so there's an interrupted pattern of smooth and rough, and that sort of spells scarlet oak to a lot of people. The other thing about it is that the leaves are cut really deeply with these C-shaped sinuses or lobes, and the result is when you look up at the canopy with scarlet oak, you see a lot of blue sky. So that's really kind of another field characteristic that might help you, is just that ability to look through the canopy and see the sky. We're down from the prairie and continuing on the oak trail, and the main trail for where the Blomquist hits the rest of Duke Gardens is just behind me. And there's a sample specimen of Darlington oak here. And Darlington oak is a curious one, and it'll fool many people. It's really an unlobed leaf species, but also it just looks like a lot of what we call the laurel-leaved oaks. and in some of the keys you'll see them grouped together, and it's an unnatural grouping of species from the white oaks, the red oaks, and the live oaks that have entire laurel-shaped leaves. So this is it, and it's also really interesting in that it's wintergreen. So it'll drop some of its leaves, but not all of its leaves. And it'll have, maybe half its leaves on during the winter. And so we call that tardily deciduous or brevideciduous. Those are sort of the terms for distinguishing evergreen from deciduous, and that's the in-between condition. And it's just about how long are the leaves staying on the plant. So this is basically, they're on for about a year and a half, and in the spring they'll all fall and there'll be a whole new set. So this is called the Darlington oak for reasons that I'm not sure of, but it's also known as Quercus hemispherica.